morning. Today I am going to talk about hydrogenation using organometallic catalyst. So in the last class we have talked about different types of organometallic catalysts and their structural properties and their behavior we have seen. Then the last class we have discussed about Tolman's how he systemized what are the different types of organometallic catalysts based on the nature of reactions. So now from this class onwards we will be talking about various important type of catalytic transformation using organometallic catalyst. So in this aspect we will first talk about hydrogenation using organometallic catalyst. So the reference which I followed is two books I have followed. One is Organometallic by Christoph Elsenburg and other one is Basic Organometallic by the P.D. Gupta and Elias, which I mentioned already. So page number also I have given here. So first of all, what is hydrogenation? It is the addition of hydrogen to an unsaturated moiety. The unsaturated moiety can be carbon-carbon double bond or carbon-oxygen double bond or carbon nitrogen double bond or nitrogen oxygen double bond, any kind of unsaturated moiety. The addition of hydrogen is called as what is called as a hydrogenation. Often it has been proceeded by the what is called as a molecular hydrogen activation, which is by the mostly by transition metal catalysts or complexes. So the most of the D block elements has been used as a hydrogenation catalyst. In particularly group 8 metal element has been known as a best catalyst for a hydrogenation catalyst. Even in our research group we do the lot of ruthenium, rhodium and palladium based catalyst for the hydrogenation reaction. And the hydrogenation reaction is important when you talk about the catalyst which can capable of reducing one specific type of unsaturation. Suppose if a molecule having the carbonyl, carbon-carbon double bond and other different types of unsaturation is there, a catalyst which can be specific will be more interesting compared to the if the catalyst can be hydrogenate every molecule, every unsaturated portion. And other one is reduce one set of unsaturation in that's why when you have even the polyolefin, suppose olefin with the polyolefin, if it can hydrogenate specific then it can also it will be interesting. Then other one is asymmetric hydrogen. These are the three important aspects which is important when you talk about hydrogenation. So when we talk about hydrogenation, first of all, as I said that the hydrogen should be activated by using the organometallic catalyst. The activation of hydrogen can occur with the three different way. One is what is called as oxidative addition. So when you talk about oxidative addition, then what is going to happen is here is the example is best example is a Wilkinson catalyst, that is a chlororhodium triphenyl phosphine complex, okay, where the rhodium in +1 oxidized state. So when you add hydrogen, then you will get a hydride ions, two hydride ions going to be added into the rhodium center and it form the rhodium 3 plus complex. So it is goes from rhodium +1 to +3 complex. That's why it's called as a oxidative addition. Or the hydrogen can be activated with the heterolytic fashion. What do you mean heterolytic fashion? So if you, for example, the catalyst like ruthenium chloride based catalyst, when you treat with the hydrogen, so you can see that ruthenium chlorohydrate complex like hydrate ions complex can be formed in which hydrogen in the anionic form, the another hydrogen is in the cationic form. That's why it's a heterolytic fashion. So that is what it is called as a heterolytic way it can be activated. And the other way it can also activate with a homolytic fashion. So for example, if you take a cobalt cyano complex or cobalt carbonyl complex, when you treat with the hydrogen, then what will happen? Cobalt cyanohydride complex, which will in which both hydrogen is going to be in the hydride ion form, which is going to be formed. So these are the different way the hydrogen can be activated. Now when you talk about hydrogenation catalyst, one can easily remember that the Wilkinson catalyst is the first or a very familiar catalyst which will come into our mind. That is basically the Wilkinson catalyst. This is the Wilkinson catalyst. That is a chlorotriphenyl phosphine rhodium 1 complex. Chlorotriphenyl phosphine rhodium 1 complex. This is the first highly active hydrogenation catalyst which has been used extensively in the hydrogenation of variety of functional group. It is not selective. One important thing is the Wilkinson catalyst, that is a what I call as a first generation Wilkinson catalyst. It is not selective, but it can hydrogenate. Interestingly, it can hydrogenate any kind of functionality present there. Alkene, alkyne, and variety of unsaturated molecule, carbonyl, ketone, aldehyde, all can be hydrogenated. The mechanism aspect of Wilkinson catalyst was derived by the famous scientist called Halpern. He is the one who developed the mechanism aspect. And there are two routes which differ in order of hydrogenation. by either the first is hydrogen coordinating or olefin coordinating. We'll see in the next slide how it is proceed. And the thing is, before going to the two different route, we'll talk about that. This is the first generation Wilkinson catalyst, which is used for the hydrogenation of many functionality, as I said. In particularly, it is used for hydrogenating both terminal and internal olefin. So internal terminal olefin means, for example, hexene. If you take hexene, one hexene is the terminal olefin where the double bond is present in the terminal portion. The other one is internal olefin means, suppose two hexene or three hexene where the double bond is inside. That is what internal olefin. So it can hydrogenate both internal and terminal olefin. Then later they have also developed another kind of catalyst, that is the second generation or later generation catalyst of Wilkinson, where the hydrate carbonyl complex of rhodium, which is used for specifically for the terminal olefin. And all these Wilkinson catalysts, whatever the Wilkinson catalyst developed, it has a limitation. One is it can hydrogenate any kind of functionality present, that any kind of unsaturation present, and other one is it can, especially terminal olefin, it can go to the isomerization and it give the byproduct. So these are the two major drawbacks. Is that how it will overcome, we'll talk about later. First we'll talk about what we call the mechanism aspect. Okay, so when you talk about mechanism aspect, the basic catalyst is, as I said, the chlorotriphenyl phosphine rhodium 1 complex. So this L equal to L represent the triphenyl phosphine ligand. So this is the basic catalyst it is forming. So the initial step can be, one is either through, it can reaction through oxidative addition of hydrogens. So hydrogen molecule is coming and forming the, this is a square planar complex and it will go to the octahedral complex. That is a two hydrate anions coordinate like this, and then it forms the octahedral complex. Then there will be a one phosphine, because as I said that phosphine is a very good non-participated ligand which can tune the electron property. So the phosphine ligand will be removed from the coordinating center and gives the coordinating vacancy. That is what the interesting properties of phosphine. Whenever we need, it can leave from the organometallic complex and create a vacant site. Whenever there is a vacant sites need to be filled, the phosphine can come and coordinate again. That is an interesting property of phosphine. That's why it is a best non-participating ligand which is involved in any kind of catalytic reaction. So the ligand phosphine is going out, then you will get an intermediate, pentacoordinated intermediate will form. Then the step 3 is a olefin coordination. So olefin is going to coordinate similar to what we have seen in the Dewar-Duncanson model, where the olefin is coordinated to the metal center. Then the fourth step is a alkene insertion, that is a migratory insertion. That is the olefin, the C-seed bond, it's going to be insert between the metal and hydrogen. The metal and hydrogen. So one of the hydrogen is going to be here. So you can see the metal alkene pi bond. Here it is a metal alkene pi bond, which will be converted into metal alkane sigma bond. It is going to be metal alkane sigma bond. It is going to happen. It is by the migratory insertion. This step is called as a or alkene insertion, or it is called a migratory insertion. That means the olefin is migrate and insert between the metal and hydrogen. And since it is insert between the metal and hydrogen, hydrogen will be added to the olefin and forming the intermediate. You can see that intermediate is forming. So this is the pentacoordinate. Again it comes. Then you can see that the ligand L is coming in again. As I said that phosphine is the non-participating ligand. Whenever there is a coordination vacancy is there, it can come and coordinate. Whenever we need a coordination vacancy also required, it can go out also. So the final fifth step is the phosphine come and coordinate and forming the hexa-coordinated complex. This and then the dealkylation or reductive elimination. The reductive elimination lead to the your alkane, the formation of alkane with the regeneration of the catalyst. So this how the catalyst cycle is going on. This how the reaction is proceeded. Okay, and the important thing is you can see that the reaction also can proceed by the coordination of olefin first instead of oxidative addition. Then subsequently the ligand, that is phosphine, can leave from the rhodium center, and then oxidative addition of hydrogen can occur and forming the intermediate, and then subsequent step can be followed the similar fashion. So the sequence can be proceed with either 1 2 3, or the sequence can prefer to be 7 8 9. Both way it can proceed. However, often using the Wilkinson catalyst, the 1 2 3, the pathway 1 2 3 is a more favorable because of the what you call as the phosphine ligands are bulky. So initial stage of the olefin insertion is going to be difficult. So the pathway 1 to 3 is more favorable than what you call the pathway 7, 8, 9. And the the decisive step, that is a major step, is in this hydrogenation is the migratory insertion. As I said, that when there is a migratory insertion is the the rate determining step or decisive step, it is called as a. So this how the mechanism is proceeding in the Wilkinson catalyst. That is a first generation or basic Wilkinson catalyst. When you talk about Wilkinson catalyst and mechanism, we have to only describe about this one. This is the basic Wilkinson catalyst which is used for the hydrogenation of any kind of functional group, in particularly olefin hydrogenation. It is used as a catalyst. Now, what are the important or silent features of Wilkinson catalyst? As I said, that it is best catalyst for any kind of functional group. However, it is a best for alkane is hydrogenation is faster than alkenes. Then whenever there is a conjugated diene is there, when there is a conjugation in the diene is there, the reactivity is slower than that of a isolated alkenes. Okay, when the olefin formed the isolated one, it will be faster compared to the conjugated one. And then internal olefin and terminal olefin, as I said that, for example, terminal olefin mean 1 hexene, internal olefin mean 2 or 3 hexene, where the double bond in the 2 or 3rd position. So you can see that hydrogenation of internal olefin is slower than terminal olefin. And often if the alkene having the stericness, the rate of reaction is going to decrease because you have the phosphine ligand. So when there's stericness in the alkenes, the rate of reaction is going to be slow. That is the other one. And rate of hydrogenation of cis alkenes are faster than trans alkanes. Again, this also play with some extent that steric hindrance will play in the role. That's why cis alkene will have the, because cis alkene, the substitutions are away from the metal center, so it will be faster than trans alkene. Then presence of polar group also facilitate faster. Okay, because presence of polar group facilitate the coordination of olefin with the metal center for better way. So that favor the what you call as the reactivity will be faster. These are the silent features of the Wilkinson catalyst. Then next, when we talk about, see, the other way, the other type of catalyst, that is a hydrate carbonyl catalyst, where this will be relatively less steric corroded when there is a uh, deprotonation occur, okay, or dephosphination occur. So you can see that the reaction mechanism proceeds with the first step is the removal of phosphine ligand, that is minus Al. Then subsequently, once the phosphine is not there, then olefin can come and coordinate. Then after olefin coordination, then migratory insertion is going to happen here. First, this is a migratory insertion, that is step 2 is going to happen. That is a olefin going to insert between the metal and hydrogen. Then subsequently oxidative addition of hydrogen is going to happen. Then you have the reductive elimination which lead to the regeneration of the catalyst. So this is the how the mechanism working on using the hydrate carbonyl of rhodium phosphine complex, how it works. This is a we can call as a second generation catalyst, or it is a selective for terminal olefin. This kind of catalysts are selective for terminal olefin. As I mentioned the earlier, this both Wilkinson catalyst has a limitation, like it can, when you talk about terminal olefin, there will be a, the olefinic bond is a isomerization can occur one using this catalyst. Second thing is these catalysts are not specific to the only to the olefin or alkenes. It can hydrogenate many other functional group also. So later there are many scientists has been developed a different types of catalysts based on the Wilkinson catalyst they are developing. So one of the important catalyst is a what I call a Schröck-Osborn cationic rhodium complex. That is a Schröck-Osborn cationic rhodium complex. So this is a cationic complex, the presence of cationic nature, so which will facilitate the alkene coordination faster, because it is a cation means it is a electrophile, so it can coordinate. Alkene is electron rich, so it can coordinate easily with the metal center. That is a one reaction, that's why it is a more reactive. And mostly the nature of the catalyst is L2 rhodium S2, that is solvent 2. The solvent can be tetrahydrofuran or acetonitrile. These are the solvent used in this catalyst. And how this catalyst, that is L2 RH solvent 2, there is solvent, there is a solvent coordination. It will, how it prepare is basically it can prepare from the basically cyclooctadiene derivative. This is the cyclooctadiene derivative of the cationic complex. See, another important thing is here is the L2 can be triphenyl phosphine, 2 triphenyl phosphine ligand, or some of the bidentate phosphine ligands. Here is the bidentate phosphine ligand. You can see that this is a bidentate phosphine ligand. Okay, that the DPP it is called that is a diphenyl diphosphorus ethylene is a dif that is a bidentate phosphine ligand. Either you can use a two phosphine ligand. Often this cationic that is Sark-Osborn cationic catalysts are used using the bidentate phosphorus ligands. So this catalyst also a more reactive catalyst. Then later the another scientist Crabtree. Crabtree has developed a cationic iridium based catalyst. It is very much analogous to this one, but then he has prepared iridium based complex. So and it was found to be better than Sark-Osborn catalyst, and also the mode of activation is very similar to in the case of Sark-Osborn and Crabtree catalyst. So when you talk about, suppose if we ask the mechanism of any of the catalyst, only we have to change the catalyst, but the mechanism aspect it is the same as we next slide I am discussing. So if it is a Crabtree catalyst, then we have to take iridium based complex. So how, as I said that this is also iridium based complex can be basically derived from the cyclooctadiene. So here it is a one is a phosphine ligand and another one is a piperidine ligands. That is a nitrogen based piperidine ligands. The phosphine ligand is a PCY3, that is a tricyclo cyclohexane phosphine. That is a PCY3 is a CY is a cyclohexane. So tricyclohexane phosphine ligand is a bulky ligand, and then piperidine as a another ligand. Suppose if you take a Sark-Osborn catalyst, this both are what you call as a, this is a bidentate phosphine will be connected instead of these two ligand. Other mechanism aspect is similar. So first this cyclooctane complex is a 16 electron complex which will be proceed with the oxidative addition of hydrogen forming the square planar complex. This is a cationic complex. Again the counter anions should be there. Always counter anions should be there here. Then first step is, as I said, that it is oxidative addition. Then it will form the migratory insertion. So cyclooctadiene, here it is a bi-bonding connection, where here it is going to be sigma bonding connection. Then what will happen? Reductive elimination. So when it goes to the reductive elimination, then you will remove the hydrogen and this carbon hydrogen bond, sorry, carbon metal bond. Then what will happen? The intermediate complex is a cyclooctene complex. Octene complex intermediate will form. Then what will happen? This step is going to be repeat again. The same, like again there is a oxidative addition, migratory insertion, and then reductive elimination. What will happen? By which the cyclooctadiene, this ligand will be leaved as a cyclooctane. Once if this ligand leaves, then there will be a solvent will be coordinating. You can see that the solvent will be coordinating. This is how the catalyst, actually the catalytic active form is, this is the catalytic active form. That is two solvent molecules with iridium with phosphine and one piperidine ligands. So when you talk about Sark-Osborn complex, two solvent ligand with rhodium with two either two phosphine or a bidentate phosphine ligand with the cationic complex with the counter charge balancing anion will be there. This is the actual catalyst which involved for the reaction, and this is the initial catalyst precursor we have taken and how it converted into this catalyst. Okay, that is catalyst precursor will be first proceed with the oxidative addition, migratory insertion, reductive elimination, and give the intermediate. These steps will be repeated, and then what you will get it, you will get the actual catalyst which is involved for the olefin hydrogenation. Then this molecules proceed with the olefin hydrogenation in the fifth position. Then oxidative addition is going to happen. That is, or the solvent will be removed and olefin will be coordinated. Then oxidative addition, then form the 6 coordinated intermediate will form. Then subsequently migratory addition will go in, migratory insertion will go on. That is a metal alkyl complex. See, whenever there is a migratory insertion, you will find the metal alkyl complex will be there. So once the migratory insertion is proceed, then reductive elimination give the product, that is olefin hydrogenated product, and you will regenerate the same catalyst. So these steps will be continue till the process has been complete. Okay. Now the another important catalyst for the hydrogenation of alkenes and other things is what it calls a Marx lanthanide organometallic complex. This is another important complex which is derived from the what it called as a lutetium hydrate complex. Lutetium, this is a lanthanide molecule is a lutetium is in +3 oxidation state. So it is a basically pendamethyl cyclopentadienyl lutetium hydride, dipendamethyl cyclopentadiene lutetium complex. This is the structure of the complex. You can see that it has a two bridging hydrogen is there. The reaction proceed with how the that is a pend molecules we will form that there is a one dehydrogenation will occur. So and then it olefin insertion will occur. Then migratory insertion will proceed. Then final step here is the what we call as the hydrogenolysis. That is the most important thing. This is the final step will proceed with the hydrogenolysis, whereas in the other cases the final step is proceed with the reductive elimination. In other rhodium and iridium catalyst, the reaction proceeds with reductive elimination. Here it is like a hydrogenolysis. That is, hydrogenolysis means insertion of hydrogen into the one to the metal center, one to the alkyl moiety. This is what happening here. That is the difference between the Marx catalyst and other catalysts. So these are the some of the main feature of the Wilkinson catalyst and other hydrogenation catalyst. Now let's talk about another important aspect of the hydrogenation catalyst, that is asymmetric hydrogenation. So this is one of the important aspect, or even the till today the commercially it is used in the some of the main chemical synthesis. So that is a asymmetric hydrogenation catalyst. So we have talked about the complex, that is cationic rhodium complex, that is a Schark-Osborn complex. We have discussed about it. So when you talk about, there is a L2 rhodium, then solvent to overall cationic complex, we have seen that. So this in this complex, it is L2, I told already, it is a mostly diphosphine complex. L2 is nothing but diphosphine complex. So in the diphosphine complex, if you have the chiral moiety, then what will happen? This will be going to behave as a chiral catalyst. Then what do you mean by chiral catalyst? It can convert the prochiral molecule. For example, this is a prochiral center. This molecule, this is cinnamate moiety, where the amino acid having the prochiral moiety. So this prochiral moiety can be converted into chiral molecules. That is what it's called as a chiral hydrogenation. So this is carried out by a molecule that is a similar to Schark-Osborn catalyst, that is cationic complex catalyst, in which L2, that is a bidentate phosphine ligand, which is having the asymmetric center, which will help to induce the asymmetry in the what I call as your product. That is why it is called as a chiral catalyst. The best example is the synthesis of amino acid. This is the amino acid NH and COH. That is amino acid. That is a synthesis of amino acid derivative. That is L-DOPA. It is called as a L-DOPA. This is the molecule L-DOPA. The synthesis of this is the one of the best example for the chiral catalyst using rhodium based catalyst. That is similar to Wilkinson catalyst. That is similar to Wilkinson catalyst. What are similar to Schark-Osborn catalyst. This is the catalyst which is used for preparation of L-DOPA synthesis. L-DOPA is the chiral amino acid which is prepared from the prochiral amino acid derivative using rhodium phosphine complex having the chiral center, and it is prepared in the Monsanto industrial synthesis for L-DOPA. The phosphine ligand is a dipamp. What is dipamp? I will talk to you later. It is a diphosphine complex having the chiral center. And what is the importance of L-DOPA? Why this becomes so interesting? Because L-DOPA is the one of the potential molecules in treating Parkinson disease. It is one of the potential molecules for treating the Parkinson disease. So Parkinson's disease is basically is a nerve related disease, which is because of the nerve, some nerve related disease occur in the what you call in the brain. This is how this reactions this L-DOPA has been helped to control the Parkinson disease using this catalyst. That is using this L-DOPA, which is prepared by using this asymmetric catalyst, that is a L2RH solvent to cationic complex, where L2 is the chiral phosphine ligands. So here is some of the examples of phosphine ligands having the chiral center, like chirapos, norpos, or dipam. This is a dipam. So dipam is a ethane 1,2-diol bis 2-methoxyphenyl phenylphosphine. So you have to remember, there is no other option. You have to remember at least diampam. So these are the some of the chiral phosphine ligand which has been extensively used in organic synthesis using the organometallic complex, that is rhodium based organometallic complex. It has been extensively, these are the best examples for chiral ligands which is used in the various one is chiropos. So this is a bis diphenyl phosphonobutane. This is the bis butane, 1 2 3 4, there is 4 carbon, so it is a butane. Bis diphenyl phosphine, so 2 diphenyl phosphine and butane. So here the chiral center, you can see that. Or diop is another example. Isopropyldene, because this is the isopropyldene propyl group, and propyldene 2 3 dihydroxo. So it is a, see, 1 2 3 4. If you take butane, you see that this is a 2 3 dihydroxo, 1 4 bis 1 comma 4 bis diphenyl phosphonobutane. This is again also same derivative of butane. So this is another molecule. Diop is another chiral phosphine. So the where the chiral centers are present, accordingly they have been also classified. Chiral at phosphorus atom, for example, dipam, in which the chiral at phosphorus center. You can see that there is a chirality at the phosphorus center, or chirality at the backbone, the molecule's backbone. This is the backbone of the molecules where the chirality is there, or having the planarity in the plane. Accordingly, it has been, or in the steric binap, where the chirality in the steric. Accordingly, they have been classified. The chiral phosphorus has been classified into different category. So these are the some of the examples of chiral phosphorus, and has been extensively used for the asymmetric synthesis of the, or asymmetric hydrogenation of the prochiral molecules. So this is what the mechanism aspect of the L-DOPA synthesis. So L-DOPA is the, as I said, that it is a prochiral amino acid. It is a prochiral amino acid. So your catalyst is the rhodium based 2 solvent molecules and 1 diphosphine ligands having the chiral center. The example is a dipam. This is what a dipam is, the diphosphine bidentate phosphine ligand having the chiral center. So this is the both initial steps. The first step is the protein complex and then olefin coordination. That is, olefin is nothing but methyl acetamidocinamide. This is the amino acid prochiral molecules which is used for synthesis of L-DOPA. So when it coordinate, you know that the prochiral molecule have the two phase, that is a re phase or psi phase. So re phase means it is a clockwise rotation. So if you take NH is the periodicity molecule, NH is the periodicity group, then CO, then CC and CC molecules. So here it is a C2O is there. So this is a second priority, first priority NH. So if you see that it is a rotation towards the clockwise. If you consider this is a prochiral central, there is a so the metal, that is a olefin, is coordinated through the re phase. There is a clockwise rotation to the prochiral center to the metal center when it's coordinated. So that is what it is called the coordination through the re phase. So when the coordination through re phase is going to occur and form the intermediate, that coordinated intermediate will going to get it. Okay, then there will be the another way is the coordination through the psi phase. See, when you talk about coordination through psi phase, it is an anticlock rotation from the olefinic center where the metal is coordinated. So here is anticlock rotation. You can see the based on the periodicity of the group. You can see that. So that's why it's called a psi phase coordination and re phase coordination. So this is the primary step which determine the overall your enantiomeric excess of L-DOPA preparation has been decided, because the L-DOPA is a, there is a L-DOPA, or whether we get other product, or S product or R product. The S product is a potential for the molecule for the Parkinson's disease, which is using this catalyst we could able to get a 95% yield. The primary aspect is it is because of the formation of what is called the rephase and psi phase. The rephase, the rate of formation or amount of this rephase formation is less, but the thing is they are highly reactive. It can be 580 times reactive than the psi phase. So what will happen, as soon as this molecule's rephase intermediate form, it immediately go for the oxidative addition, then subsequently migratory insertion, and gives the reductive elimination, gives the your what you call as chiral molecules with the enantiomeric excess of L-DOPA. Whereas the other way, psi phase, the reaction is faster here, but the problem is this is the relatively stabilized. Okay, when they are relatively stabilized, then what is going to having, this step is not further progress, because next step like oxidative addition of hydrogen, then subsequent steps are slow. So this product is a minor. So we could able to get a enantiomeric excess of that L-DOPA using this catalyst due to the formation of rephase formation of the molecule, which is more reactive, that is 580 times more reactive than. So that lead to that's what. So as I said, that catalyst uses a L2 ORH solvent 2 cationic complex, and L is a chiral diphosphine, that is a R, R dipam. This is the chiral molecules. So metal can bind with the two-way, as I said, that either through the rephase or psi-phase. So rephase is more reactive and will proceed for the oxidation faster than psi-phase, which facilitate the reaction gives the more of enantiomeric excess of what we call as a hydrogenated product, that is a L-DOPA preparation. So these are the major important aspect of hydrogenation catalyst, and it's important for the application in the organometallic catalyst. So herewith I stop that. Next we'll talk about a hydroisomerization and hydroformylation catalyst, which we'll discuss in the next class. Before that, I will be conducting this week one exam, as I mentioned the previously. So I request you to go through, and book I have followed also I have mentioned. I think Mr. Ravi has shared the book also he shared through WhatsApp. So you go through it, and content you go through it, my video go through it. So we'll have the exam till the last class syllabus. Not this one will not be included. Okay. Thank you.